This is what happens when a man who feels nothing finally feels everything. 48 hours ago, she was just an intern, a witness he needed to protect. He saved her because it was logical, strategic, the right move for the case. Attorney Kang Jiwon didn't do emotions, couldn't do them. His brain literally couldn't process what others called feelings. But when this woman looked at him, something impossible began. His heart raced. His chest tightened. For the first time in 13 years, he felt. And once you teach a man who can't feel how to love, he'll burn down the world to keep you safe. Let's dive into the story. Seoul never truly sleeps, but at 2:14 in the morning, even this relentless city pauses to catch its breath. The rain that night fell in sheets, washing the neon-lit streets clean of the day's sins, or perhaps just hiding them better in the darkness. In the alley behind the Grand Lotus Hotel, where shadows gathered thick between dumpsters and delivery crates, a young woman crouched in absolute terror, her entire body trembling as cold water soaked through her clothes. Aya Ndaba had been in Seoul for exactly 3 months, 14 days, and roughly 6 hours. She had come with dreams carefully packed alongside her textbooks, dreams of becoming an international human rights attorney, of making a difference, of proving that a girl from a small town in Zimbabwe could stand in the halls of power and demand justice. Her internship at one of Seoul's most prestigious law firms was supposed to be the foundation of that future. Clean. Simple. If nothing about tonight was safe. Her phone felt impossibly heavy in her shaking hands. The screen glowed with damning evidence. A video she had recorded without thinking. Pure instinct driving her fingers to press record when she saw something that her mind couldn't initially process as real. But it was real. Horrifyingly, undeniably real. She had been working late as usual. The junior interns always worked late, competing silently with each other for the attention of senior partners, for that golden recommendation that could launch a career. She'd left through the back entrance of the firm's building, taking a shortcut through the alley system that connected to her subway stop. The Grand Lotus Hotel backed up to the same alley network, a 5-star establishment where politicians and businessmen conducted their most private affairs. That's where she'd seen them. 2 men in expensive suits, standing in the yellow cone of a service light. She'd noticed them only because one was shouting, his voice sharp and angry, cutting through the sound of the rain. She'd started to turn away. Rich men arguing was none of her business, and she'd learned quickly that in Seoul, a foreigner who minded her own business had an easier time of things. But then she'd heard the distinctive sound of a gun being cocked. Her body had frozen, but her hands had moved independently, pulling out her phone, angling it around the corner of the dumpster she'd ducked behind. Through the screen, she watched as the taller man, middle-aged, with the kind of face that appeared in newspapers and on political broadcasts, raised a pistol with steady, practiced ease. The other man had begged. She couldn't understand all the Korean words, but begging sounds the same in every language. The gunshot had been quieter than she expected, almost polite, a soft crack that seemed wrong for something that ended a life. The man had dropped, and the politician, because she recognized him now, recognized that face from the news broadcasts in the firm's lobby, had calmly handed the gun to someone else who'd emerged from the hotel's service door. He'd pulled out a handkerchief, wiped his hands, and said something that made the others laugh. Actually laugh. That's when her phone had slipped, just slightly, and the movement must have caught someone's eye. There. Someone's there. She'd run. Now, minutes or maybe hours later, time had become elastic with fear. She huddled behind a dumpster 3 blocks away, listening to footsteps echo through the alley system, listening to voices calling to each other in Korean, coordinating their search. Her phone's screen blurred through her tears. She needed help. She needed someone, anyone, who could do something with this information before they found her and made sure that video disappeared along with its witness. The firm's directory was still open on her phone from earlier in the evening when she'd been looking up case file references. Names scrolled past her shaking thumb. Partners, senior attorneys, associates. Who could she trust? Who would even answer at this hour? What if some of them were connected to? Her thumb stopped on a name. Kang Jiwon, senior litigation attorney. She knew that name. Everyone at the firm knew that name, though few had ever seen the man himself. He worked on the top floor, in a private office that might as well have been on another planet for how accessible it was to interns. The rumors about Attorney Kang were whispered in break rooms and over after-work drinks. He never lost. He never showed emotion. He never took cases he couldn't win. Some said he was a machine, that something in his brain worked differently, that he processed logic and law with perfect clarity precisely because he couldn't process feelings. Others said he'd been normal once, years ago, before something had happened that had burned out whatever part of the human soul generated warmth. He was feared in courtrooms, respected by judges, hated by opponents, and right now he was the only name on her screen that felt like it might possibly, maybe, save her life. Her finger pressed the call button before she could talk herself out of it. It rang once, 3 times. She heard the footsteps getting closer, voices speaking urgently into phones, calling for more men to seal off the area. 4 rings. 5. Her breath came in short, panicked gasps. She was going to die in an alley in Seoul, thousands of miles from home, and no one would even know. The line connected. "This is Attorney Kang. State your emergency." The voice was exactly what she'd expected. Cool, professional, devoid of inflection. It was the voice of someone who'd been woken at 2:14 a.m. and didn't particularly care about that fact one way or another. Clinical. Precise. Cold. Aya opened her mouth to speak, but only a sob came out. "Who is this?" A slight edge entered the voice. Not concern. More like irritation at an inefficient use of his time. "Hey, Attorney Kang," she managed to whisper, her accent thick with terror. I work at the firm. I'm an intern. I just witnessed." Footsteps very close now. A flashlight beam swept across the mouth of her hiding spot. "I recorded something," she gasped. "A murder. Politician. I have it on video. There. Where are you?" The question came sharp and immediate. Not, "What politician?" or "Are you certain?" or any of the logical follow-ups a lawyer might ask. Just, "Where are you?" "Behind the Grand Lotus Hotel, I think." "I ran, I don't." Her voice broke. "They're coming. Can hear them. Oh God, there. Listen to me very carefully." The voice had changed just fractionally. Still controlled, but with an undercurrent of something she couldn't identify. "Do not move. Do not make any sound. Keep this line open. I need you to." A hand grabbed her shoulder. Aya screamed. The phone flew from her grip, clattering against the wet pavement. Strong hands pulled her up, spinning her around, slamming her against the brick wall. A man's face filled her vision. Hard eyes, calculating expression, hand reaching for something at his belt. Found her. More footsteps running now. The man's hand moved toward her throat. Then stopped. Sirens. Distant but getting closer. Multiple sirens coming fast. The man's eyes widened. He said something urgent in Korean into his radio. The response made him curse, release her and step back. "You have 1 day," he said in heavily accented English. "Delete that video. Forget what you saw. Or you die. Your family dies. Everyone you've ever known dies. Understand?" She couldn't speak, couldn't move, could barely breathe. He leaned closer. "1 day. We know where you live." Then they were gone, melting into the shadows as the sirens grew louder. Aya collapsed, sliding down the wall, her legs unable to support her weight. Her phone lay on the ground a few feet away, screen cracked but still glowing. She could hear a voice coming from it, distant and tinny. "Your location. I have your location from the phone company. Police are en route. Listen to me. Are you injured?" She crawled to the phone, picked it up with nerveless fingers. They let me go. The sirens. I called them. Are you injured?" I don't think so. The police will be there in approximately 90 seconds. Do not speak to them about the video. Do not show them the video. Tell them you were mugged and fought off your attacker. Nothing more. Do you understand?" Her mind felt like it was moving through mud. But the video they need to see. Do you want to die tonight? The question was flat, factual. Because if you show that video to the wrong officer, you will not survive until morning. Seoul Metropolitan Police is compromised at multiple levels. You will tell them you were mugged. You will take their report. You will give them nothing else. And then you will come directly to my office. Do you understand? Ah, yes. Yes, I understand. Good. I'll send a car to pick you up from the police station. Do not get into any other vehicle. Do not go home. Do not contact anyone else. The driver will have a code phrase. Attorney Kang sent me. If anyone approaches without that exact phrase, scream and run back inside the station. Why are you helping me? The question came out before she could stop it. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Long enough that she thought maybe the call had dropped. Then, I don't know yet. The line went dead. Kang Jiwon stood in his office, staring at his phone for exactly 15 seconds after ending the call. A wasteful expenditure of time that he noticed and noted with internal disapproval. Efficiency was everything. Hesitation was weakness. Emotional response was inefficiency. He'd built his entire career on these principles. At 32, he was the youngest senior litigation attorney in the firm's 73-year history. His record was flawless, not in the sense that he'd never lost because he had 3 times in his career, but flawless in that he'd never taken a case he couldn't win. Perfect judgment, perfect execution, perfect control. His colleagues whispered about him. He knew this, had always known it, and found it neither flattering nor offensive. Merely factual. They said he was cold, ruthless, inhuman. They said he processed cases like a computer processes data, without bias or sentiment clouding his judgment. They were right. What they didn't know, what no one knew except his doctors and the medical files sealed in a private hospital's database, was that Kang Jiwon's emotional detachment wasn't a choice or a personality trait. It was a diagnosis. The official term was alexithymia with selective affective blunting. In simpler terms, the part of his brain that should generate emotional responses had been damaged in a car accident when he was 19. The same accident that had killed both his parents and left him in a coma for 6 weeks. When he'd woken up, something fundamental had been different. He could understand emotions intellectually. He could observe that someone was sad or happy or angry and respond appropriately based on social norms. He understood that certain situations should generate certain feelings. But he didn't feel them. Fear, joy, love, grief. They were concepts he recognized but couldn't access. Like a blind person understanding that light exists without ever experiencing its warmth. For most people this would have been devastating. For Jiwon it had been liberation. Without emotions clouding his judgment, he'd excelled at law school. Without fear of failure or anxiety about outcomes, he'd dominated in courtrooms. Without attachments or sentiment, he'd made decisions that others hesitated over. He'd built a reputation as the attorney you hired when winning was the only acceptable outcome. He didn't miss what he couldn't remember having. He didn't mourn the loss of something he'd never valued. He was efficient, effective, perfect in his function. Until tonight. Until a terrified voice speaking accented Korean had said, "They're coming," and something inside his chest had done something it had never done before. It had hurt. Not physically. He understood physical pain, that was processed in different neural pathways. This was something else. Tightness. An urgency. A sense of wrongness that went beyond logical assessment of the situation. When he'd heard her scream, heard the phone clatter to the ground, heard the sound of struggle. His hand had moved without conscious thought, already dialing emergency services, already using his connections to trace her phone's location, already marshalling resources. His heart rate had increased. His breathing had changed. For exactly 18 seconds, Kang Jiwon had experienced something that felt uncomfortably like panic. Then his training had reasserted itself. Emotions were inefficient. He'd pushed the sensation aside, categorized it as an anomaly, focused on the practical steps needed to ensure the witness's survival. She possessed evidence that could be valuable. She was in danger. Therefore, protecting her was the logical course of action. The fact that her voice had sounded young and frightened and desperately alone was irrelevant. The fact that something in his chest still felt tight was irrelevant. Everything was perfectly logical. He looked at his watch. 2:47 a.m. He made a call. Yes. The voice on the other end was alert despite the hour. His assistant, Kim Min-jae, who'd learned long ago that Attorney Kang's calls came at all hours and always meant work. I need a secure car sent to Gangnam Police Station. The driver is to pick up a woman. African, early 20s, will be finishing a report about a mugging. Code phrase. Attorney Kang sent me. Bring her directly to the office. No stops. No conversations. Activate Security Protocol 7. Security Protocol 7. Sir, that's... Yes. Understood. May I ask what this concerns? A case. At 3 in the morning. Do you have a problem with the hours I keep, Min-jae? No, sir. Car will be there in 20 minutes. Jiwon ended the call and moved to his office window. 63 floors up, Seoul spread below him like a circuit board, lights and patterns that made sense if you understood the systems. He'd always understood systems. He'd never understood people. But systems could be corrupted. He knew this. And if an intern had witnessed a murder committed by someone with enough power to deploy armed men within minutes, to potentially compromise police officers, to threaten with such confidence, then the corruption went deep. Deep enough to be interesting. Deep enough to be worth his time. The tightness in his chest had nothing to do with it. He spent the next 90 minutes reviewing what he could find about recent political movements, cross-referencing with cases his firm had handled, building a preliminary picture of who might be involved. By the time his phone buzzed with a message from Min-jae, package secured en route, he had a working theory and a plan of action. What he didn't have was an explanation for why his hands were not entirely steady. Aya had never been inside the upper floors of the firm. Interns worked in a basement-level bullpen, a fluorescent-lit space crammed with desks where they competed for scraps of real legal work between coffee runs and document copying. The senior attorney's floors were a distant legend, spoken of but never seen. Now, riding the elevator up with a silent driver who hadn't said more than the code phrase, she was acutely aware of how she must look. Soaked to the skin, her clothes muddy and torn, her hands still shaking uncontrollably. She'd given the police a statement about a mugging, showed them nothing, and sat in that station for 40 minutes convinced that any moment someone would come through the door to finish what they'd started in the alley. The elevator doors opened onto a reception area that looked nothing like the bustling chaos of the lower floors. Everything here was dark wood and soft lighting, expensive art on the walls, carpet so thick her footsteps made no sound. Empty at this hour, it felt like a museum after closing, beautiful and slightly threatening in its silence. The driver led her down a corridor to a door at the very end. Solid wood, no nameplate. He knocked once and opened it without waiting for a response. Attorney Kang. The witness. Then he stepped aside and gestured for her to enter. Aya walked into the office and immediately understood why they called him cold. The space was immaculate. Floor-to-ceiling windows showing the Seoul skyline, a massive desk with nothing on it but a laptop and a single lamp, bookshelves lined with legal texts arranged by height and color. No photographs, no personal items. No indication that a human being actually worked here rather than an AI given physical form. And behind the desk, standing with his back to her as he looked out at the city, was attorney Kang Jiwon. He was taller than she'd expected. Lean but clearly fit beneath the perfect lines of his suit. Yes, he was wearing a full suit at 4:30 in the morning. His hair was black and precisely styled. When he turned to face her, she understood immediately what people meant when they called him emotionless. His face was objectively handsome. Sharp jawline, symmetrical features, the kind of face that should have been expressive. But it wasn't. His eyes were a dark gray that caught the lamplight strangely, and they looked at her with the kind of detached assessment a scientist might give a specimen. Sit, he said, gesturing to a chair across from his desk. Not please sit, or are you all right, or any of the normal human responses to someone who just survived an attempted murder. You sat. She was too exhausted and frightened to do anything else. He moved to his desk, opened a drawer, and pulled out a towel, white, pristine, hotel quality. He held it out to her without comment. She took it, pressed it against her face, and felt the tears she'd been holding back finally break through. Great, shuddering sobs that shook her entire body, the kind of crying that came from pure survival reflex finally releasing its hold. Attorney Kang sat down behind his desk and waited. He didn't try to comfort her. Didn't tell her everything would be okay. Just waited with that same patient, detached expression, as if this was simply another part of the process that needed to complete before they could proceed to the next step. Somehow that made it easier. There was no performance required, no need to pretend to be brave or composed. He expected nothing from her emotionally, so she could let it out without shame. After several minutes, the sobs subsided to hiccups, then to shaky breathing. Better, he asked. Not concerned, genuinely asking if the physiological response had completed. Yes. I'm sorry, I don't apologize. Physical response to trauma is normal and healthy. Water. He produced a bottle from somewhere, opened it, set it in front of her. She drank half of it in one long gulp. Now, he said, folding his hands on the desk. Tell me everything. From the beginning. Every detail, no matter how insignificant it seems. So she did. She told him about working late, about the shortcut through the alley, about the argument she'd heard. She described the men, their faces, the distinctive gold watch one had worn, the brand of gun she'd seen. She told him about running, about the chase, about the threat. He listened without interrupting, his expression never changing, his eyes never leaving her face. When she finished, he was silent for a long moment. Show me the video. Her hands shook as she pulled out her phone. The screen was cracked, but it still worked. She opened the video file and held the phone out to him. He took it, watched the 47-second clip 3 times with complete focus. Then he set the phone down and looked at her again. Do you know who that man is? The shooter. I recognize him from the news, but I don't remember his name. His name is Park Sang-woo. He's a senior assemblyman, chair of the Justice Committee, and currently positioning himself for a presidential run in the next election. He's also connected to the Chongsan Group, which controls approximately 15% of South Korea's GDP through various subsidiaries. Powerful, connected, completely untouchable through normal channels. Aya felt her heart sink. Then there's nothing we can do. They'll kill me, and I didn't say that. For the first time, something that might have been the ghost of a smile touched the corner of his mouth. I said he's untouchable through normal channels. I rarely use normal channels. But how can we? First, we keep you alive. That's the immediate priority. You cannot go home. You cannot contact friends or family. As of this moment, you are under my protection, which means you follow my instructions exactly. No deviations. No independent decisions. Understood. Yes, but where am I supposed to? My apartment. It's secure, off any databases, untraceable to me through public records. You'll stay there until we've neutralized the immediate threat. Aya stared at him. Your apartment. I can't, that's not, people will think. People will think whatever serves their narrative regardless of reality. Their opinions are irrelevant. Your survival is relevant. Logic dictates the most secure location. But, are you willing to die to preserve the appearance of propriety? The bluntness of the question shocked her into silence. I'm not, he continued in that same flat tone. I've invested time and resources into this case. Having the key witness murdered would be inefficient. Therefore, you stay where I can ensure your security. Everything else is noise. He stood, reached for his coat. We'll leave now. My car is in the private garage. You'll remain in the apartment while I make certain arrangements. Min-jae will bring you clothes and necessities. You will not answer the door for anyone. You will not look out the windows. You will not make any phone calls or send any messages. Are we clear? Crystal, Aya heard herself say, some spark of her usual spirit returning. You're very good at giving orders. Yes, it's one of my most valuable skills. Was that humor? She couldn't tell. His expression hadn't changed. He walked to the door, paused, looked back at her. One more thing. The threat they made about your family. I've already made arrangements. My associate in Harare will be making contact with your parents within the hour. They'll be moved to a secure location with private security. Expensive but necessary. His breath caught. My parents. How did you? Your employment file includes emergency contacts. I'm thorough. But the cost, I can't possibly. Consider it an investment in the case. Now come. We've wasted enough time on explanations. He walked out, clearly expecting her to follow. Aya sat for a moment longer, trying to process what had just happened. This strange, cold man had just upended her entire life, was offering her protection she desperately needed, was already moving pieces on a board she couldn't see, and apparently didn't require anything resembling normal human interaction to do it. She should have been more frightened of him. Instead, for the first time since the alley, she felt something that might have been safe. She stood and followed him into the corridor. Jiwon's apartment was exactly what Aya expected, and nothing like what she expected at the same time. It occupied the entire top floor of a building in Hanamdong, one of Seoul's most exclusive neighborhoods. The elevator opened directly into the living space. No hallway, no separation. Just immediate immersion into what felt more like an architect's showcase than a home. Everything was in shades of gray and white and black. Clean lines, minimal furniture. Windows that offered a panoramic view of the Han River and the mountains beyond. Beautiful in the way a perfectly rendered CGI environment was beautiful. Technically flawless but somehow lifeless. Guest room is there, Jiwon said, pointing to a door on the left. Bathroom attached. Kitchen is through there. Help yourself to anything. I'll be in my office. He pointed to another door on the right. Do not disturb me unless there's an emergency. What counts as an emergency? Someone trying to kill you. Anything less can wait. He shrugged off his coat, draped it over a chair with precise care, and disappeared into his office, closing the door with a soft click. Aya stood in the middle of the vast living room, still dripping slightly on his pristine floors, and felt the absurdity of her situation finally hit her. 12 hours ago, her biggest worry had been whether she'd get assigned to research for the intellectual property case or stuck doing more translations. Now she was a murder witness hiding in a stranger's apartment while assassins hunted her, and her parents were being evacuated by private security. Her legs gave out. She sat down right there on the floor, not caring about the expensive rug beneath her, and pulled her knees to her chest. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving behind a bone-deep exhaustion that made even breathing feel like effort. He should shower. Try to sleep. Instead, she sat there as dawn light began to filter through those enormous windows, watching Seoul wake up, and wondered if she'd ever feel normal again. The door to Jiwon's office opened. She didn't know how long she'd been sitting there. The sun was fully up now, bright and indifferent to her crisis. He stood in the doorway, studying her with that clinical gaze. You should rest. I can't. Physical exhaustion will impair your judgment and memory recall. Both will be necessary in the coming days. Therefore, rest. I said I can't. Her voice came out sharper than intended. Every time I close my eyes I see. Stop. Her hands were shaking again. Jiwon was quiet for a moment. Then he moved across the room with economical grace, opened a cabinet, and returned with a small bottle and a glass of water. Anxiety medication. Prescribed to me but unnecessary. I don't experience anxiety. Take one. It will allow your nervous system to regulate without triggering dependency if used short-term. Aya looked at the pill he'd placed in her palm. You just Carry anti-anxiety medication you don't need? My doctor insists on prescribing it despite my explaining that it serves no purpose. I keep it because disposing of controlled substances requires paperwork. He paused. Take it. There was no concern in his voice. No warmth. Just practical instruction. But he'd come out of his office. He'd noticed she was still sitting on his floor. He'd offered her something that might help. She swallowed the pill. Good. Now, guest room. But close your eyes. Your brain will do the rest. Just like that. Just like that. The medication will take effect within 20 minutes. Fighting it is inefficient. He turned to go back to his office. Attorney Kang. He paused, didn't turn around. Thank you. For everything. I know you don't. I mean, I understand this is just a case for you, but still. Thank you. His shoulders tensed slightly. The first real physical reaction she'd seen from him. It's not just a case, he said quietly. Then he walked into his office and closed the door. Aya sat there for a moment longer, trying to parse what he'd meant by that. What emotion might have been buried in those 4 words? But the medication was already taking effect, making her thoughts fuzzy and her limbs heavy. She made it to the guest room, pulled off her ruined clothes, and fell into the bed. The last thought she had before sleep claimed her was that Kang Jiwon's sheets smelled like cedar and rain. Aya woke to afternoon light and the smell of food. For a moment, she couldn't remember where she was. The bed was too comfortable, the room too quiet, the ceiling too high. Then memory crashed back. The murder, the chase, the cold-eyed attorney who'd taken her in like she was a stray cat he'd found useful. She sat up slowly, her body aching in places she hadn't known could ache. Someone had been in the room while she slept. There were clothes folded neatly on a chair, still in shopping bags with tags attached. Expensive brands she recognized but had never imagined wearing. In the bathroom she found toiletries, also new, also expensive. Someone had guessed her sizes perfectly and her preferred style with unnerving accuracy. She showered, standing under water hot enough to hurt, scrubbing off the grime and fear of the previous night. When she finally emerged, dressed in clothes that fit like they'd been tailored for her, she felt almost human again. The apartment was silent. She found Jiwon in the kitchen, or rather, in the space that technically qualified as a kitchen despite looking like it had never been used for actual cooking. He sat at the island counter, eating what appeared to be takeout with methodical precision, reading something on his tablet. You're awake. Eat. He gestured to several containers of food spread across the counter. Korean dishes but also some African food. How had he known? And some Western options. Did you order all this? Min-jae did. I instructed him to provide options since I don't know your preferences. Inefficient to order items you won't eat. Aya slid onto a stool across from him and helped herself to some food. She was hungrier than she'd realized. They ate in silence for several minutes before she worked up the courage to ask the obvious question. What happens now? Now we build the case. The video is evidence, but alone it's insufficient. We need corroborating testimony, financial records, communication logs. We need to understand the full scope of what you witnessed. Who the victim was, why he was killed, who else is involved. And how long will that take? Weeks, possibly months. Complex corruption cases require meticulous construction. Months. I set down her chopsticks. I can't hide in your apartment for months. You can and you will if necessary. I have a life. I have classes, responsibilities. You have a target on your back. He looked up from his tablet, those gray eyes pinning her in place. The moment you surface, you're dead. Accept that reality and adjust accordingly. So I just... What? Sit here. Do nothing. You assist with the case. Your insight as the witness will be valuable. I'll have documents brought here for review, people to interview via secure video. You won't be idle. This is insane. This is practical. Aya pushed away from the counter, pacing to the windows. Seoul sprawled below, millions of people going about their lives, completely unaware that she was trapped in a glass tower with a man who spoke like a robot and apparently expected her to just accept house arrest. "I didn't ask for this," she said quietly. "No one asks to witness a murder. Yet here we are. You don't have to sound so calm about it. Would you prefer I panic? Would that improve the situation?" She turned to glare at him. "Would it kill you to pretend to have some human emotion? To act like this is something other than a logical puzzle?" He stood, moved to the sink, rinsed his dishes with the same mechanical precision he did everything. When he spoke, his voice was even quieter than before. "I'm not pretending anything. I am exactly what you see. Someone who processes situations through logic because other processing methods are unavailable to me. If that makes you uncomfortable, I apologize for the inconvenience. But it doesn't change what needs to be done." "What do you mean, unavailable?" He didn't answer, just dried his hands and moved toward his office. "Attorney Kang." He paused. "What did you mean?" A long silence. Then, "I experienced a traumatic brain injury years ago. It affected certain neural pathways. I understand that there should be emotional responses to situations. I observe others having them. I simply don't experience them myself. It's not a choice. It's a limitation." Aya felt her anger drain away, replaced by something more complicated. "I didn't know. I'm sorry." "Why? You didn't cause it." He glanced back at her, and for just a moment, she thought she saw something in his expression. Not quite confusion but close. "I should be the one apologizing. I'm told I'm difficult to be around. That my manner is off-putting. If there were someone else I trusted to protect you as effectively, I would transfer you to their care. But there isn't. So you're stuck with me." "I didn't mean." "Min Jae will arrive in an hour with case files. I suggest you prepare yourself. The work will be intensive." He disappeared into his office. Aya stood there, staring at the closed door, trying to reconcile the cold, efficient attorney with a man who just admitted to a disability with the same clinical detachment. He discussed case strategy. She was stuck in an apartment with a man who couldn't feel emotions. And somehow, that made him the safest person she'd ever met. The next 3 days fell into a strange rhythm. Jiwon worked constantly. At his desk in the office, at the dining table, sometimes standing at the windows with his phone pressed to his ear, speaking in rapid Korean that Aya could only partially follow. Min Jae came and went, always professional, always efficient, bringing files and food and updates on the security situation. Her parents were safe. That was the first good news. They'd been moved to a private compound outside Harare with round-the-clock protection. They'd been told she was assisting with an important case and unable to communicate for security reasons. They were frightened but unharmed. The second piece of news was less comforting. Park Sang-woo, the politician from the video, had publicly announced his presidential campaign the day after the murder. He was polling well. The man she'd watched kill someone in cold blood might become the next president of South Korea. "Which is precisely why we need to be thorough," Jiwon said when she brought this up. "A public accusation without airtight evidence won't just fail. It will get you killed and hand him a sympathy narrative. We move when we're ready, not before." Aya found herself drawn into the work despite her circumstances. Jiwon was right, she wasn't idle. He had her reviewing documents, translating materials that touched on international law, watching hours of surveillance footage to see if she could identify any of the other men from that night. What surprised her most was how he worked with her. He never talked down to her, never dismissed her questions. When she pointed out something he'd missed, a legal precedent from an African Union case that might apply, he simply nodded, made a note, and incorporated it into his strategy. When she was wrong, he corrected her with the same clinical precision, no judgment, just information. "You're good at this," he said on the third evening as they reviewed financial records spread across the dining table. "The work. You think laterally. Most interns at the firm just regurgitate what they're taught. You question." It was the first compliment she'd heard from him, delivered in the same flat tone he used for everything else, but a compliment nonetheless. "Thank you. You're Also good at this. The corner of his mouth twitched. Not quite a smile but close. I'd better be. It's the only thing I am good at. That's not true. Isn't it? He looked up from the spreadsheet he was annotating. I can't maintain friendships because I don't understand why people need emotional validation. I can't form romantic relationships because I don't experience attraction in ways that others find satisfactory. I can't even properly appreciate art or music because the emotional resonance others describe is completely absent for me. Law is the only arena where my particular limitation becomes an advantage. Aya set down her pen. You saved my life. That's something. That was logic. You had valuable evidence. Protecting you protected the case. You called emergency services before you even knew what I'd witnessed. That wasn't logic. He was quiet for a long moment. His eyes still on the spreadsheet but his focus clearly elsewhere. I don't know why I did that, he finally admitted. When I heard you scream, something happened. My heart rate increased. My breathing pattern changed. Felt something. I don't have a word for it because I've never felt it before. It was uncomfortable, distracting, illogical. That's called caring, Attorney Kang. Is it? He looked genuinely curious. It felt more like a malfunction. Despite everything, Aya laughed. The sound surprised both of them. What? He asked. Ooh. You just described human empathy as a malfunction. That's the most you thing you've ever said. The most me thing. Yes. Like your brain is a very advanced computer that just discovered it has a faulty wire but doesn't know what to do about it. He considered this. That's not inaccurate as metaphors go. She smiled at him, and for the first time, he held her gaze for longer than necessary. Not analyzing, not assessing. Just looking. You have a nice smile, he said abruptly. Then frowned, as if the words had escaped without permission. That was. I don't usually comment on people's physical features. I apologize if that was inappropriate. It wasn't inappropriate. It was sweet. Sweet. He tested the word like it was in a foreign language. I've never been called that before. Well, you are. In your own weird, emotionally stunted way. Emotionally stunted is accurate. I didn't mean it as an insult. I didn't take it as one. It's simply factual. He turned back to his work, but there was something different in his posture now. Less rigid, maybe. We should continue. These records won't analyze themselves. They worked in silence for another hour, but it was a different kind of silence than before. More comfortable. Less like two strangers forced together by circumstance and more like colleagues. Maybe even friends. Aya caught herself glancing at him when he wasn't looking. Noticing things she hadn't before. The way his hair fell across his forehead when he leaned over documents. The elegant movement of his hands as he typed. The rare moments when his mouth softened just slightly, as close to relaxation as he seemed to get. She looked away quickly when he glanced up. This was dangerous territory. He was her protector, her attorney. Getting any kind of feelings beyond professional respect was a terrible idea. She'd promised herself after the disaster at her last job. The senior partner who'd shown interest pursued her, then turned vicious when she tried to establish boundaries, that she would never blur professional and personal lines again. Yet, there was something about Kang Jiwon that made her want to understand him. To find the human beneath the machine. To be the person who could make him feel something real. Which was stupid. Dangerous. Completely inappropriate. She forced her attention back to the financial records and tried to ignore the way her heart had started beating faster when he was in the room. The breakthrough came on day 7. Aya was reviewing surveillance footage from the hotel's parking garage. Endless hours of grainy black and white, when she saw something that made her pause. She rewound, watched again, froze the frame. Attorney Kang. He emerged from his office immediately. She was learning his patterns. He worked in 90-minute blocks, took exactly 12 minutes for meals, slept precisely 6 hours per night. Efficient. Predictable. What did you find? She pointed at the screen. This car. It arrives at 1:47 a.m., 27 minutes before the murder. Watch who gets out. He leaned over her shoulder, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something subtle and expensive. She tried not to notice. On the screen, a black sedan pulled into a spot. 3 men emerged. One of them was Park Sang-woo. The other 2 were the men who'd chased her. Now watch this. She fast-forwarded to after the murder. They leave at 2:06 a.m. But look at the trunk. The car sat lower on its suspension. Something heavy had been loaded. The body, Jiwon said. They transported it. Which means it has to turn up somewhere. And if it does, physical evidence. Ballistics if we're fortunate. He straightened up, and she could see the gears turning behind his eyes. The car's license plate. Can you enhance it? I can try. She worked for another 20 minutes, using video editing software that Min-jae had installed on the laptop. Finally she had it, a clear shot of the license plate. Jiwon took a photo with his phone, typed rapidly. Registered to a shell company. Which is registered to another shell company. But everything traces back eventually. Give me an hour. He disappeared back into his office. Aya sat back, staring at the frozen frame. They were getting closer. Building the web of evidence that would eventually trap Park Sang-woo and everyone connected to him. But what happened after? When the case was over, when she was no longer in danger, when there was no more reason for her to stay in this apartment with this strange, brilliant man who was starting to feel less strange and more essential, she pushed the thought away. One crisis at a time. 2 hours later, Jiwon emerged with a printout. The body was found 3 days ago. Burned. Dumped in a ravine outside of Incheon. Officially ruled a suicide. The detective who handled it is. He checked his notes, Detective Han Jae-sung. 47 years old, 23 years on the force, and recently purchased a vacation home in Jeju that's well outside his salary range. He's being paid off. Almost certainly. But that works in our favor. Corrupt officials are easier to flip when you have leverage. I'll need to approach him carefully. You're going to meet with him. What if he warns Park? He won't. Because I'll make it clear that his options are either cooperate with me or face prosecution himself. People are predictable when their self-interest is threatened. He looked at her. I'll need to leave the apartment for this. You'll be alone for several hours. Something cold settled in Aya's stomach. How long? 4 hours, possibly 5. Min-jae will be in the building's security office. You'll have a panic button that connects directly to him. The doors have biometric locks. No one can enter without my fingerprint or retinal scan. But what if? Aya. He said her name for the first time. Not Ms. Ndaba or the witness, but her actual name. I wouldn't leave if I wasn't certain of your safety. I've analyzed every risk factor. The probability of anyone locating this apartment is 0.03%. You'll be fine. Okay. She tried to sound confident. Okay. Oh. Do what you need to do. He studied her for a moment, and she saw something flicker in his expression. Concern. Hesitation. It was gone too quickly to identify. I'll be back by 9 p.m. Don't answer the door for anyone. Don't go near the windows. If anything feels wrong, press the panic button. I understand. He gathered his things. Briefcase, phone, coat. The door, he paused. Aya. Yes. He seemed to struggle with something. I'll return as quickly as possible. Then he was gone. The apartment felt enormous and empty without him. I tried to work but couldn't focus. Tried to watch something but the silence felt oppressive. She ended up standing at the windows. He'd said don't go near them, but she stayed back, just looking at the city lights coming on as dusk fell. Somewhere out there, Jiwon was meeting with a corrupt detective, building their case, risking exposure. And she was here, safe but useless, waiting. She hated waiting. At 7:30 p.m., her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. We know where you are. We're coming. Her blood went cold. She stared at the message, hands shaking. Could be a bluff. A trick to flush her out. But what if it wasn't? She checked the locks. All secure. The panic button was on the table. She could press it, bring Min-jae running. But what if that was exactly what they wanted? What if this was a test? Another message. Look outside. Against every instinct, against Jiwon's instructions, she moved to the window. On the street below, a black sedan was parked. The same model from the surveillance footage. Her breath came in short gasps. This was real. They'd found her. They were coming. She grabbed the panic button, pressed it hard. Nothing happened. She pressed again. And again. They'd gotten to the building's security system somehow. Min-jae wasn't coming. She was alone. Think, she commanded herself. Think like Jiwon would think. Logic. Options. The apartment door was the only entry point. Biometric locks that couldn't be bypassed easily. Windows didn't open, sealed for the climate control system. She was 63 floors up. No fire escape, no balcony. She was trapped. Jiwon's office. He had a safe in there, she'd seen him access it. What would someone like him keep in a safe? Documents, probably. Money, possibly. Weapons. She ran to his office, tried the door. Locked, but a simple keypad lock, not biometric. She tried the obvious combinations. The firm's founding date, his birthday if she'd known it. Nothing worked. The sound of the elevator reaching their floor. Bing. Her heart hammered. How did they have elevator access? The building was supposed to be secure. Money. Money bought anything in Seoul. Including security guards. She tried another combination on the keypad. This time the date of the murder. The date that had tied them together. The date everything changed. Blick. The door opened. She burst into his office. Found the safe behind a sliding panel. No time for combinations. She grabbed a paperweight from his desk, a heavy crystal thing, and smashed it against the safe's electronic panel. Once. On the third hit, the panel sparked and the lock clicked open. Inside, documents, USB drives, cash, and, thank God, a handgun. She'd never held a gun before. Her hands shook as she picked it up, checked it the way she'd seen done in movies. Loaded. Safety off. The sound of the apartment door being forced open. They were inside. Aya backed into the corner of the office, behind Jiwon's desk. Gun raised, every nerve in her body screaming. A step. Multiple sets. Moving through the apartment. Check every room. The voices were Korean, but she understood enough. They were getting closer. The office door swung open. A man stepped inside. One of the men from the alley. He saw her immediately, smiled. There you are. You should have deleted the video when you had the chance. He raised his gun. Aya closed her eyes and pulled the trigger. The gunshot was deafening in the enclosed space. Aya opened her eyes to find the man on the floor, clutching his shoulder, blood spreading across his shirt. She'd hit him, actually hit him. She was shaking so hard she could barely hold the gun. Shouts from the other rooms. More footsteps, running. She didn't think, just acted. Grabbed the USB drives from the safe, stuffed them in her pockets, ran for the apartment service exit that she'd noticed days ago but never questioned. Behind her. She shot him. Find her. The service exit led to a maintenance stairwell. She ran down, taking stairs 2 at a time, 63 floors becoming 60, 55, 50. Her lungs burned. Her legs screamed. She kept running. 40 floors. 35. The sound of the stairwell door opening above her. They were following. She couldn't outrun them. Not all the way down. She needed. At the 27th floor she saw it. A door marked, Building Services. Authorized personnel only. She tried the handle. Locked, but a flimsy lock. She shot it. The second gunshot of her life. The door flew open. She stumbled into a corridor lined with electrical panels and HVAC equipment. Found a storage closet, squeezed inside behind a rack of cleaning supplies. Footsteps thundered past moments later. She waited, barely breathing, gun clutched in both hands. Minutes passed. 20. Her phone buzzed. Jiwon. She answered without thinking. They found me. They're in the building. Where exactly? His voice was sharp, urgent. The first time she'd heard real emotion in it. 27th floor. Service corridor. There. Stay there. Don't move. I'm 8 minutes away. Jiwon, they have guns, they. 8 minutes. Trust me. The line went dead. Aya curled into the smallest space possible and waited. Somewhere in the building she heard sirens. Police. Or more corruption. 6 minutes. The sound of footsteps in the corridor again. Slower this time. Searching. 5 minutes. A voice very close. Check the storage rooms. 4 minutes. The closet door handle rattled. Aya raised the gun, aimed at the door, finger on the trigger. The door opened. She nearly fired before recognizing him. Min-jae, Jiwon's assistant, looking absolutely terrified. Ms. Ndaba. Are you? Oh, thank God. Come on quickly. How do I know you're not? Attorney Kang sent me. We need to move now. Those men are regrouping. There's a service exit to the parking garage. She didn't have a choice. She followed him. They made it to the garage just as a familiar black car screeched to a stop in front of them. Jiwon was driving. Actually driving when she'd only ever seen him be driven. Get in. I dove into the passenger seat. Min-jae got in back. Jiwon was already moving before she'd closed the door. Are you hurt? He didn't look at her, eyes on the road, weaving through traffic with precision that suggested this wasn't his first high-speed escape. No. I shot one of them. I think I might have killed him. You didn't. Shoulder wound. He'll live to testify. You did well. I broke your safe. Irrelevant. I disobeyed your instructions about the windows. You survived. That's what matters. They drove in silence for several minutes, heading away from the city center, into an area Aya didn't recognize. Where are we going? Somewhere they won't think to look. A safe house outside city limits. He glanced at her finally, and she saw it. Genuine fear in his eyes, already fading but unmistakable. They hacked the building's security system. Sophisticated. Expensive. This is bigger than we estimated. The panic button didn't work. I know. Sorry. That's my failure. How did they find the apartment? I don't know yet. But I will. He turned off the main road onto what looked like a private drive, trees closing in on both sides. After another 10 minutes, a house appeared. Traditional Korean architecture, isolated, surrounded by walls. This belongs to a client, Jiwon explained as he parked. Someone who owes me several favors and doesn't ask questions. We'll be safe here while I make new arrangements. Inside, the house was beautiful. All wood and rice paper, traditional but updated with modern conveniences. Min-jae immediately began checking windows and setting up security equipment he'd brought. Jiwon turned to Aya, and for the first time since she'd met him, she saw his composure crack. His hands shook slightly as he reached out, stopped just short of touching her face, pulled back. I shouldn't have left you alone. Calculated wrong. He stopped, jaw clenching. I'm not accustomed to making mistakes. It's not your fault. You couldn't have known. I should have known. That's my job. To know. To protect. To. He stopped again, turned away. You could have died. Because of my miscalculation. That's unacceptable. I saw it then. He was angry. Not at her, at himself. Maybe the most human emotion she'd seen from him. But I didn't die. I'm here. I'm okay. You shot someone. You were hunted through my building. You. His voice caught. Caught. You were terrified. I heard it in your voice on the phone. And I wasn't there. She crossed to him, placed a hand on his arm. He flinched at the contact but didn't pull away. You came. That's what matters. You came. He looked down at her hand on his arm, then at her face. Something shifted in his expression. Confusion, wonder, fear all mixing together in ways she'd never seen him display. "I don't know what's happening to me," he said quietly. "These past days. Every time I look at you, something in my chest feels tight. When you're in danger, my entire body reacts. When you smile, I want you to smile again. I don't understand it. I can't categorize it. It doesn't follow any pattern I know. Jiwon. I think," he paused, searching for words. "I think I might be feeling things. Real things. Not just acknowledging that feelings should exist, but actually experiencing them. And it's terrifying." "Yes." He looked almost relieved that she understood. "How do people function like this? How do you make decisions when everything is weighted with emotional significance? How do you think clearly when your heart rate increases every time someone enters the room?" Aya felt her own heart hammering. "You learn to live with it, to use it. Emotions aren't a malfunction, Jiwon. They're information. Different information than logic, but just as valuable." "Are they?" He was still looking at her with that intense focus. "Because right now, what I'm feeling is telling me to do something highly inappropriate given our professional relationship." "What's it telling you?" His eyes dropped to her lips. "To stop maintaining distance. To give in to something I don't understand but can't seem to resist." The air between them felt electric. Aya knew she should step back, should remind them both of all the reasons this was a terrible idea. She'd promised herself. Never again. No blurred lines. No professional complications. But Kang Jiwon wasn't like her former boss. Wasn't manipulative or predatory. He was struggling with emotions like they were a foreign language, asking permission with every word, giving her every chance to walk away. She didn't walk away. "Maybe," she said softly, "you should stop overthinking and just feel." "I don't know how." "Then let me teach you." She stood on her toes and kissed him. For a moment, he didn't react at all. Stood perfectly still, clearly trying to process what was happening. Then something broke loose. His arms came around her, pulling her closer with a desperation that felt nothing like his usual control. He kissed her back with all the intensity he usually reserved for dismantling witnesses in court, like he was trying to understand her through touch, through taste, through the simple fact of connection. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he looked absolutely stunned. He stopped. Started again. "I've never been kissed. Not like that. Not in a way that made me feel." Another pause. "Everything. I felt everything." Aya smiled, touching his face gently. "Welcome to being human, Attorney Kang. I don't know if I like it." "Liar." "You're right. I think." He pulled her close again, rested his forehead against hers. "I think I like it very much. When it involves you." Behind them, Min-jae cleared his throat pointedly. "I hate to interrupt, but we still have several security measures to implement. And perhaps Attorney Kang should consider that we're still being actively hunted by assassins." Jiwon pulled back, his composure sliding back into place, though not quite as perfectly as before. "Right. Security. Logical priorities." But he kept hold of Aya's hand as he turned to his assistant. And she didn't let go. They spent the next 4 days at the safe house, and everything changed. Not externally. They still worked on the case, still built evidence, still prepared for the eventual confrontation with Park Sang-woo and his network. Min-jae came and went with supplies and updates. The threat remained constant. But between them, something had shifted fundamentally. Jiwon stopped pretending he didn't feel. Oh, he still struggled with it. Would freeze sometimes when an emotion hit him, analyzing it like a scientist encountering a new species. But he stopped fighting it. Aya watched him discover feelings the way a child discovers language. He'd stand at the window watching rain fall and say, "I think this is contentment. The knowledge that you're safe in the next room makes the sound of rain pleasant rather than merely neutral." Or he'd work across the table from her, glance up and observe, When you concentrate, you bite your lower lip. Knowing that makes me want to stop working and simply watch you. I believe this is what people call distraction, and it's highly inefficient, but I don't want it to stop. He was methodical even about emotions, cataloging them, trying to understand their logic. But there was something endearing about his analytical approach to feelings that should have been instinctive. What undid Aya completely was his honesty. One evening, as they reviewed surveillance footage side by side on the couch, he stopped the video and turned to her. "I need to tell you something." His tone was serious enough that her stomach clenched. "Okay. I've been researching what's happening to me. The sudden onset of emotional responses after years of absence. It's not medically common, but there are documented cases. Usually, it requires a significant trigger, something that creates new neural pathways or reactivates dormant ones. And you're the trigger. You've literally rewired my brain." He said it like he was presenting evidence in court. "The first time I heard your voice, terrified, asking for help, something activated that had been dormant since my injury. Every subsequent interaction has strengthened those pathways. You've made me feel again." I didn't know what to say to that. The logical part of my brain, which is still dominant, understands this creates a problem, he continued. Because what if these feelings aren't genuine? What if they're simply neural responses to stimulus? What if I'm confusing gratitude for something deeper? How can I trust emotions I've only just learned to recognize? What does the non-logical part of your brain say? He looked at her with those gray eyes that weren't cold anymore. "That I don't care. That logical or not, genuine or not, what I feel when I look at you is the most real thing I've ever experienced. That I would rather have these confusing, inefficient, overwhelming feelings than go back to the emptiness I had before." He reached out, tucked a strand of hair behind her ear with fingers that trembled slightly. "I think I'm falling in love with you, Aya. And I have no idea if I'm doing it correctly." She laughed through sudden tears. "There's no correct way to do it. Then I'm probably doing it wrong. I should be more romantic, perhaps. Poetic. I should know the right words to say. Instead, I can only tell you that when you're near, my heart rate increases by approximately 17%. That I've begun sleeping poorly because I spend hours lying awake thinking about you. That the idea of you leaving when this case is over causes something I can only describe as pain, even though there's no physical injury. Jiwon. I'm not good at this," he continued, almost desperate now. "I don't know how to love someone properly. I'll make mistakes. I'll struggle to express things others find intuitive. I'll frustrate you with my analytical approach to emotions. But I can promise you this. Everything I feel intensely. And everything I feel is aimed at you." Aya kissed him then, cutting off his worried rambling, pouring everything she felt into it. When they broke apart, she whispered, "You're doing it exactly right." That night, after Min-jae had left and the house was secured, they lay on the couch together, Aya's head on Jiwon's chest, his arm around her shoulders. The TV played something neither was watching. "Tell me about your family," she said. She felt him tense slightly. "My parents died when I was 19. The same accident that caused my injury. I'm sorry. It was a long time ago. I don't remember feeling grief. My memory of emotions before the accident is vague at best. I understand intellectually that I lost something significant. But I can't access the feeling of that loss. Do you miss them? I don't know. How would I know if I don't remember what missing someone feels like?" He paused. "Though lately, I've started to wonder what they would think of me now. Of the person I became. That's new. Before, I never thought about their opinions. Now, I find myself wanting them to approve of my choices." "They would," Aya said firmly. "You're brilliant. Successful. You save people. I save cases. That's different. You saved me. That's different too." His arm tightened around her. You're special. You broke through something I didn't even know was breakable." They lay in comfortable silence for a while. Then Aya asked the question that had been nagging at her. "What happens when this is over? When Park Sang-woo is in prison and I'm not in danger anymore. She felt Jiwon's breath catch. I don't know, he admitted. Logically, you'll return to your life. Finish your internship. Go back to your studies. Eventually return home. That's the natural progression. And emotionally. He struggled with the word. Emotionally, I want you to stay. I want to learn how to be with someone, how to love properly, how to navigate all these feelings I'm discovering. I want more time to understand this. To understand us. I want that too. But you have a life. Goals. Dreams that existed before any of this happened. Dreams change. Do they? Or do traumatic circumstances make us think they've changed when really we're just responding to fear? Always the analyst, even now. Jiwon listened to me. Aya sat up, turned to face him. Yes, this started because of danger and fear and circumstances neither of us chose. But what I feel for you isn't Stockholm Syndrome or trauma bonding or any other clinical explanation your brain wants to assign it. It's real. You're real. This is real. How can you be sure? Because I've been attracted to the wrong men before. I know what it's like to confuse attention with affection, power with protection. This isn't that. You don't have power over me, you gave me power. You put a gun in my hands. You trust me with your cases. You admitted vulnerability. That's not a man trying to control me. That's a man trying to figure out how to be human with me. He looked at her for a long moment, processing. I've never been called human before. It was always machine or robot, or various creative synonyms. You're the first person to see past the efficiency and find something worth saving. There's a lot worth saving. He pulled her back down against him. Then let's save each other. The breakthrough came through the corrupt detective. Jiwon had met with Detective Han 3 times, each meeting carefully orchestrated, each one tightening the noose. By the 4th meeting, Han had cracked completely and provided everything. The fake suicide report, the burial site coordinates, the chain of evidence he'd destroyed, the money trail. More importantly, he provided names. Park Sang-woo wasn't acting alone. He was part of a network. Politicians, business leaders, even a few judges. They called themselves the Chongsan Circle, after the conglomerate at its center. They'd been operating for years, consolidating power through murder, blackmail, and strategic corruption. The man Park had killed was a whistleblower, a former Chongsan Group accountant who'd discovered financial irregularities. He'd been about to go public. So they'd silenced him. They'd done it before. Would do it again. Unless someone stopped them. This is bigger than I thought, Jiwon admitted one evening, surrounded by documents and evidence that now filled an entire room of the safe house. Taking down Park is just the beginning. We need to dismantle the entire network. Can we? He asked. With what we have now? Well, we need more. Testimony from someone on the inside. Financial records from Chongsan Group itself. Communication logs that prove coordination. So we need someone to flip. Yes. But who? Jiwon studied his evidence board. Photos, names, connections drawn in red marker. Everyone in this circle is either too powerful to pressure or too deep to save. They're all complicit. They've all profited. He stopped. What? There. He pointed to a photo in the corner. A woman, younger than the others, attractive, always in the background of group photos. Park's mistress. Lee Soo-jin. 28 years old, former actress. Currently living in a penthouse that costs more per month than most people make in a year. You think she knows something? I think she's the only one in this network who hasn't actively participated in the crimes. She's an accessory, certainly. But if we approach her correctly, offer her immunity, guarantee her safety, she might testify. She might. Jiwon was already making notes. It's risky. If Park finds out we've made contact, he'll either threaten her into silence or eliminate her entirely. We'd need to move fast. Extract her, protect her. Convince her that cooperating is her only chance at survival. Can you do that? He looked at Aya, and she saw the absolute confidence in his eyes. I haven't lost a case I've committed to winning. I don't plan to start now. The operation took 3 days to plan. Lee Soo-jin lived in Gangnam, in a building with security that rivaled Jiwon's previous apartment. She rarely left. Park kept her essentially imprisoned in luxury, a beautiful bird in a gilded cage. But she had a routine. Every Friday, her personal trainer came at 2 p.m. The trainer left at 3:30 p.m. For those 90 minutes, Soo-jin was alone. "I'll go," Aya said when Jiwon outlined the plan. "Absolutely not. Think about it logically. If you show up at her door, she'll think it's a trap. If I show up, another woman clearly not a threat, she might listen. You're not trained for extraction operations. Neither are you. You're a lawyer, not a spy. I've handled difficult witnesses before. Male witnesses. Hostile witnesses. This woman has been controlled by men her entire adult life. She needs to see that there's another option. A woman who understands. Someone who... No." Jiwon's voice was flat. "I won't risk you. It's not your choice. As your attorney. As my attorney, you should recognize that I'm not your client anymore. I'm your partner. In this case and in..." She gestured between them. "Whatever this is. Partners make decisions together." Jiwon's jaw clenched. She could see him struggling, logic warring with a protective instinct that was still new to him. The risk is too high. The risk of doing nothing is higher. If we don't get Soo-jin's testimony, Park walks. The entire network stays intact. More people die. That's unacceptable. He turned away, hands gripping the edge of the table. "I just got you back. After the apartment, after nearly losing you. I can't." His voice cracked on the last word. Aya moved behind him, wrapped her arms around his waist, rested her head against his back. "You won't lose me. I'll be careful. I'll wear a wire so you can hear everything. Min-jae will be in a van outside. At the first sign of trouble I run. But Jiwon, we need her." "You know we do." A long silence. Then, "If anything goes wrong, anything at all, you abort immediately. Your safety supersedes the case. Always." "Agreed." He turned in her arms, looked down at her with eyes full of fear he was still learning to process. "I don't like this feeling. This terror at the thought of you in danger. How do people function with this constantly? They trust. They have faith. I'm not good at faith. I deal in evidence and probability. Then trust the evidence. I survived an assassination attempt. I shot a man. I made it down 63 floors while being chased. I'm stronger than you think. I know how strong you are." He touched her face gently. "That doesn't make me less afraid." "Good. Fear means you care. And caring means you're alive." He kissed her then, soft and desperate and full of all the things he still couldn't put into words. "Come back to me," he whispered against her lips. "Always." Friday, 2:15 p.m. Aya stood outside Lee Soo-jin's penthouse door. Her heart hammering so hard she was sure the security cameras could pick it up. The wire under her shirt felt obvious, conspicuous, though Min-jae had assured her it was undetectable. In her ear, Jiwon's voice. "You don't have to do this. We can find another way." She'd been hearing variations of that all morning. "I'm doing it." She knocked. The door opened almost immediately. Lee Soo-jin was even more beautiful in person. Delicate features, expensive clothes, but eyes that held a kind of desperate sadness that no amount of luxury could hide. "Yes." Her voice was soft, uncertain. "Ms. Lee, my name is Aya Ndaba. I need to speak with you about Park Sang-woo. It's urgent." Soo-jin's face went pale. "I don't know what you're talking about. Please leave." She started to close the door. Aya put her foot in the gap. "I know what he did. I saw it. Have video. And I know he's going to kill me unless I can stop him. But I can't do it alone. I need your help." "I can't, Hill." Soo-jin's voice dropped to a terrified whisper. "He'll kill me too if he finds out I talk to you. Then don't let him find out." "Me in 5 minutes." Just listen to what I have to say. If you want me to leave after that, I'll go. Soojin hesitated, glanced down the hallway as if expecting Park to materialize from the shadows. Then she stepped back. 5 minutes. The penthouse was exactly what Aya expected. All white surfaces and expensive art, beautiful and sterile, like living in a showroom. Soojin didn't offer her a seat, just stood near the door, arms wrapped around herself defensively. What do you want? The truth. About Park Sang-woo. About the Chongsan Circle. About all of it. I don't know anything. Yes, you do. You've been with him for 3 years. You've heard things, seen things. You know exactly what kind of man he is. Soojin's eyes filled with tears. Even if I did, what difference would it make? They're too powerful. No one can touch them. I can. With your help. In her ear, Jiwon's voice. Show her the video. Let her see what she's protecting. Aya pulled out her phone, queued up the footage. This is what your boyfriend did 5 weeks ago. This is who you're loyal to. She turned the phone so Soojin could see. The woman watched, her face going from pale to gray. When the gunshot came, she flinched violently. "Oh God," she whispered. "Oh God," he said. He said it was handled quietly. I didn't know he meant. You knew he was capable of it. Knowing and seeing are different things. Soojin sank onto the couch, shaking. I wanted to leave. So many times I wanted to leave. But he said if I ever tried, he'd destroy me. Destroy my family. He has files on everyone. Blackmail, leverage. He owns people. He doesn't own me. And he won't own you if you testify against him. Testify? Soojin laughed bitterly. I'd never make it to court. I'd die in some convenient accident. Not if you're in protective custody. Not if we move fast enough that he can't react. My attorney has connections. Your attorney can't protect you from Park Sang-woo. No one can. He's kept me alive for 5 weeks. We've built a case. We're close, so close, but we need someone on the inside. We need you. Soojin was quiet for a long moment, staring at the phone screen frozen on Park's face. What would you need from me? Hope flared in Aya's chest. Everything you know. Names, dates, transactions you've overheard. Access to his files if possible. Communication records. Anything that proves the network exists and that they've committed crimes. He keeps files. In his office, in a safe. I have the combination. He made me memorize it in case something happened to him and someone needed to retrieve documents. In her ear. Get the combination. Get her to agree to extraction. We can have a team there in 20 minutes. If you give us that combination, if you testify, we can bring them all down. Park, the entire Chongsan Circle. You can be free. Free. Soojin said the word like it was foreign. I don't remember what that feels like. Then let me show you. 15 minutes later, Aya had the safe combination, a list of names Soojin had heard mentioned, and a promise that she would go into protective custody. Min Jae is coming up now, Jiwon said in her ear. He'll escort her down to the van. You've done brilliantly, Aya. Now get out. But as Aya stood to leave, Soojin grabbed her arm. Wait. There's something else you should know. What? Park knows about you. About your attorney. He knows you're building a case. Ice flooded Aya's veins. How? He has someone inside the prosecutor's office. Someone who flagged unusual activity. Inquiries into Chongsan Group, requests for sealed records. Park's been tracking the investigation. He knows it's coming. Does he know where we are? Not yet. But he's looking. And he has resources you can't imagine. It's only a matter of time. A knock at the door. Min Jae's voice. Delivery for Ms. Lee. Code phrase. Soojin opened the door. Min Jae entered quickly. Assessed the situation with a glance. We need to move. Now. But before they could, Soojin's phone rang. She looked at the screen and went white. It's him. Park. He never calls this early. Don't answer, Aya said. If I don't, he'll know something's wrong. He tracks my phone. If he sees someone else here. She answered, putting it on speaker with shaking hands. Soo-jin. Park's voice was smooth, cultured, and absolutely chilling. I hope I'm not interrupting anything. No, of course not. I was just entertaining a visitor. An African woman named Aya Ndaba. Please don't insult me by lying. I have cameras in your building. The room went silent. In Aya's ear, Jiwon's voice was sharp with panic. Get out. He knows. Get out. But Park was still talking. Aya Ndaba. The witness who's been causing me such inconvenience. Thank you for finally revealing yourself. And thank you, Soo-jin, for being so predictable. I knew if anyone could get you to crack, it would be another woman playing on your sympathies. Park, please. Soo-jin's voice was terrified. You're both going to stay exactly where you are. I have men in the building. They're coming up now. If you try to leave, they'll shoot you in the hallway. If you stay, well, we'll have a conversation about loyalty and consequences. The line went dead. Min-jae was already moving, checking the door, the windows. Stairwell exit is compromised. I see 2 men posted there. Service elevator the same. We're trapped. In her ear, Jiwon's voice. I'm coming. Hold position. I'm 10 minutes away. You can't, Aya said. If you come, they'll kill you too. I don't care. I care. Her voice broke. Jiwon, listen to me. You need to finish this. Take down the network. That only happens if you survive. If you have the combination to Park's safe, you can get the evidence even without Soo-jin's testimony. You can. I don't give a damn about the case. I care about you. The raw emotion in his voice, from a man who'd spent years feeling nothing, nearly broke her. Then honor that by staying alive. By finishing what we started. By making my death mean something. You're not going to die. I won't allow it. It's not your choice. The door burst open. 4 men, guns drawn. One of them was Park Sang-woo himself, immaculate in a grey suit, looking at the scene with cold satisfaction. Ms. Ndaba. We meet at last. Aya had imagined this moment, confronting Park Sang-woo face to face, but never like this. Never trapped, never helpless. Never with Jiwon's voice in her ear whispering desperate plans that would never work in time. Park moved into the room with the confidence of a man who'd never lost. His men kept their guns trained on Aya and Min-jae while he approached Soo-jin. Disappointed, he said softly, almost gently. Then he backhanded her across the face. Soo-jin crumpled, blood at the corner of her mouth. Don't. Aya started forward. A gun pressed against her temple stopped her. Heroics are so tedious, Park said. Ms. Ndaba, you've been remarkably persistent. I'll give you that. But persistence without power is just stubbornness. And stubbornness gets people killed. People already know. My attorney has everything. If you kill me, you prove his case. Your attorney. The famous Kang Jiwon. Yes, I know about him. Brilliant mind. Shame about the emotional deficit. Park smiled. Though I hear he's been making progress on that front. Thanks to you. How touching. In her ear, barely audible. I'm almost there. Just keep him talking. Please. Here's what's going to happen, Park continued. You're going to give me that wire you're wearing. Then you're going to call your attorney and tell him you've reconsidered. That you're scared. That you want to delete the video and disappear. He'll try to convince you otherwise, but you'll be insistent, tearful, convincing. And if I refuse, then I shoot your friend here. He gestured to Min-jae. Then Ms. Lee. Then I find your attorney and shoot him too. Then your parents in Zimbabwe. Then everyone you've ever cared about. And then, eventually I shoot you. But only after you've watched everyone else die first. The casual way he described mass murder made Aya's blood run cold. Or, Park said, you make one phone call and everyone lives. You disappear somewhere comfortable. I'll even pay for it. Call it compensation for your trouble. You get to live. Your people get to live. Everyone's happy. Except the man you murdered. Except him. But he made his choice when he tried to expose us. Just like you made yours when you pointed that camera. Choices have consequences, Ms. Ndaba. I'm offering you a chance to choose differently. Aya looked at Sujin bleeding on the floor. At Min-jae, jaw clenched, calculating odds that were impossible. At the guns pointed at them both. In her ear, Jiwon's voice. Don't do it. Whatever he's asking, don't do it. 2 minutes. I'm 2 minutes away. 2 minutes might as well be 2 hours. She thought about her parents, safe in that compound, not knowing their daughter was about to die. She thought about Jiwon learning to feel again, learning to love, only to have it ripped away. She thought about all the other people Park would hurt, would kill, if someone didn't stop him. And she made her choice. Okay, she said quietly. I'll make the call. No. Jiwon's voice in her ear was anguished. Park smiled. Wise decision. Remove the wire. Aya reached under her shirt, pulled out the small microphone, held it in her palm. Park reached for it. She closed her fist and swallowed it. The wire, with its battery and electronics, went down her throat in one painful gulp. Park's expression went from smug to shocked. What? Now you can't use it to trace my attorney? Aya gasped, throat burning. And those batteries? They're lithium. They leak. I have maybe an hour before they poison me. Maybe less. You insane. Shoot me and you get nothing. No phone call. No leverage. No. The window exploded. Not shattered, exploded. Something came through it with devastating force, scattering glass everywhere. One of Park's men went down immediately, a dart in his neck. Then another window broke. And another. Tear gas canisters bounced across the floor, filling the room with choking smoke. Aya dropped, covering her face. Around her, shouts, gunfire, chaos. Strong hands grabbed her. She struggled until she heard Min-jae's voice. It's me. Come on. He pulled her toward the kitchen, where the smoke was less dense. Through the chaos, she saw figures in tactical gear pouring through the broken windows. Not police uniforms, private military contractors. Jiwon had brought an army. Another hand grabbed her. Rougher, desperate. Park, his face twisted with rage. Gun pressed against her head. Everyone stop or she dies. The room froze. Through the smoke, a figure approached. Tall, precise, and absolutely furious. Jiwon. He wore a tactical vest over his suit, looked completely out of place and somehow terrifying in his controlled rage. Let her go. Or what? You'll shoot me. I don't think so, Attorney Kang. You're too civilized for that.